Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this session on good estates management. And I hope you've had a productive day so far. My name's David Fugarali. I lead the team called Capital Efficiency and Capability at here in Westminster, and our purpose is to support schools to help build their efficiency, capability, and practice in managing their estate. Now, for us, it's more than buildings. To us, a building is a machine for delivering great outcomes for young people and supporting schools to do the job that they're here to do. So our aim is to help schools deliver world-class education through world-class estates management. And so we're very focused on the best, the most effective practice and things that actually work for schools rather than a whole set of guidances or tools that perhaps aren't that relevant for schools. We have three broad priorities, and the first is to ensure that every school in the country is safe, that no person in any school in our country is at a risk of harm or anything worse. The second is the usual that you expect from a building, that it's warm, safe, sheltered, doesn't leak, all of those sorts of things. And the third is that the buildings are conducive to supporting really good teaching and really good learning, so really set up. And I think during the pandemic, we found how important buildings and facilities and remote facilities really are in delivering education. So we know that schools and responsible bodies are responsible for keeping their buildings safe, keeping them well maintained and in good order. And our role really is to support schools and responsible bodies to be able to do that as effectively and efficiently as possible. So there's various support that we offer, and most of you will be familiar with funding, both steady state funding and emergency funding for specific issues. And again, with the school rebuilding programme, providing support to rebuild new schools across the country. And we also publish a range of advice, tools and guidance, including good estates management for schools and managing asbestos in your school or college. We have targeted programs such as the Capital Advisors Programme that sends experts in estates management with a track record of making a difference in schools to help support schools to learn how they can better improve their practice or tackle some of the issues that they're facing. We also have an ambition to engage with every single one of the 22,000 schools across the country to make sure that they're aware of the importance of good estates management, that they're aware of the support, guidance and tools available to help them do that well, and also that they're aware of the risks of where it goes wrong. And of course, some of you may be familiar with risks such as asbestos release or building collapse or failure in other mechanistic parts of the building. Now, we also work with sector-led organisations, and colleagues from Ormiston are part of one of those called the Trust Network, which I'm hoping very much that all MATs will join in some shape or form. And these are this is an organisation led by the sector, for the sector, to support the sector in doing what they have to do as light touch, efficiently and effectively as possible. Now, I forgot, I'm moving through the slides, and these are slides that we normally give at presentations, and there's quite a lot of detail on there. And I haven't removed the detail because I think it will be good for you to have to peruse at your leisure. However, I'll work through them quite quickly, as we have colleagues that are actually doing the job rather than providing the support and advice that will be giving the second part of this session. I think it's really important to hear from them. And as I said earlier, what we just don't want to produce a whole set of tools and guidance. We want to produce something that actually works for schools, that actually delivers what you want it to deliver and actually makes a difference in your schools. So hence why we work really closely with the sector, and hence why we work really closely with our colleagues at Ormiston and other academies and local authorities as well through EBDOG. So, as you all are aware, the condition of the school estate isn't ideal. We have quite a large number of buildings that were built post-war, a large number that are approaching or at their use-by date, and a large number of buildings that were put up using system builds or other prefab type manufacture that can tend to be unpredictable and need extra care to maintain and keep safe. And there's 22,000 schools, roughly about 60,000 school blocks, and so the scale of the issue is quite huge. And some of the challenges that we have in the school also include things like over 80% of school buildings contain asbestos. And so really the challenge is great, and the challenge is pervasive, and hence why we're trying to reach every single school to try and support them, at least ensure that they have access to various advice and understand funding routes and other things that are available to support them to do their job. Now, I'm sure many of you are aware of the condition data collection, and that's a collection of data on the condition, as it says on the tin, at school buildings. So currently, we're in the second version of this called CDC2, the successor of CDC1. And since from 2021 to 2026, we'll be visiting all government-funded schools in England and looking at the condition of their buildings and providing their RBs and schools with a report on that. Now, this is a non-intrusive survey, so it can only go so far, but actually it's quite a comprehensive and detailed collection of data on every single school building in the country. The data is used to inform condition funding allocations, and also it's useful for us to try to get an idea of what's going on with the school estate and how we can better improve the services and products that we offer. One of the things that we're trying to do, and I've spoken to some schools, obviously not the ones here, who say, well, we wait for things to fall down, then we call somebody to come and fix them. And what we're trying to do is get schools to think about their estates in a more strategic way. So have asset management plans, have the latest data, think about, well, how do I need to manage this, not just for the next year, but over the next 5-10 years, and what are the things that I can do to keep that in place? And actually, is it more efficient to tackle a big issue, perhaps like this heating system now, rather than wait for it to fail in 2 years' time? So part of this is being able to do the best thing and the most effective thing for trying to achieve a safe, sheltered and estate that supports good teaching and learning. And part of it is to ensure that, and we all know, I mean, let's be realistic, that the funding isn't as ideal as any of us would like it to be right now. But what can we do to ensure that that funding goes as far as it possibly can? And how can we learn from others? How can we learn from effective practice in the sector and other things like that to help us do that? One of our key products is Good Estates Management for Schools, and it provides a whole set of tools, advice, and tips and things like that to help you do that. And what we do with this is written in the department, however, it's not written solely by the department. We use experts in the field, we use colleagues across the sector, including my colleagues here, who've been a great help to help us get it right, so that it has the best advice possible from those who actually, from industry experts, and also it has input and advice for experts who are actually doing the job in schools themselves. So hopefully this will work for you and actually will help you have the access to the best advice, tools and processes for managing your estate strategically. We also have something similar on asbestos, which is called Managing Asbestos in Schools. And one of the things that this does is, of course, there's a lot of advice out there already, but what we're trying to do with this, it's set out in law, but we're trying to support schools to better understand, well, what does legislation actually mean? What is a duty holder? What are the things I can quickly do in an easy and digestible way to ensure my building is safe in terms of asbestos? And again, this is very sector focused. We get our user groups and colleagues, and any feedback you give us, we use it to shape our tools and processes, including our guidance on asbestos. Now, one programme that we piloted last year, which was quite effective, as I mentioned earlier, is the Capital Advisors programme, where we send experts in estates management into schools to try to look at what they're doing, see where schools could get more out of what they're doing, see where there's any tips or any advice that schools could use to improve how they manage their estates, and they provide those schools with a report and recommendations, and also with some practical ways of implementing those recommendations. So it's not just a set of recommendations or a set of recommendations on things that you already know, but we've asked them to think about practical ways that schools can actually implement those recommendations. Now, we've had the pilot and we're hoping to roll out the programme nationally. The next phase is going to be looking at the pilot mats and seeing how they've implemented those recommendations. All of the mats involved were positive about it and were really keen to get on with it. So we want to look at and see, well, did it deliver what they thought it would deliver? And if it does, is there anything we could do better? Is there anything we could drop? All of those things so that we continue to improve the programme so that it has the biggest effect for us and the biggest effect for everyone in the sector. Now, I've got a slide here on net capacity assessment, and that helps us understand the space in a school for both teaching and non-teaching purposes. The NCA programme will cover about up to 5,000 secondary schools, and in the future there's potential to include FE colleges. The data collected will encompass room level data such as room size, room use and room type. And sorry, I'm reading on this because NCA isn't one of my programs, but we've got colleagues here that lead on it if you have any more detailed questions. And the benefits of having this data is to ensure that schools are able to have the latest data to make efficient use of their space and actually to support delivery of teaching and learning. And also it provides an independent verification for capacity on school admissions procedures. It also helps us understand and plan and work with local authorities and others to secure sufficient school places across the country. So that's my slides, and thank you for listening. And I would like to introduce my colleagues from Ormiston Academy. But before I do that, I just want to reiterate our message that what we're doing here is about trying to support schools. It's trying to help schools get the most effective practice they can, to help them use their funds in the most efficient way they can, and for us to develop products and services that actually matter to you and that actually make a difference in your schools. So we're working closely with the sector. Some of you are in our working groups, and I would encourage all of you, and I'm sure James and Fabrice will do so as well, to join the Trust Network and get involved with your colleagues who are trying to do the same and working really closely with us. So thank you very much for your time.
All right, good afternoon. My name's James Miller, and this is Fabrice Vincent, and we both work for Ormiston Academy's Trust. So that's an Academy Trust sponsor, so I'm sure many of you are from Academy Trust. So anyway, put your hand up if you are from Academy Trust. So I'm not trying to, oh, look at that, there's loads of us, so we're all here. We all come out, don't we, which is good. It's a sunny day. Right, so who is Ormiston Academy Trust? We've got 43 schools with a wide geographical spread. We're a mixture of primary and secondary, probably a bit like you. And our aspiration, just like you, is to provide high quality education to our students and young people so they can have the best life chances. We all have variations of that wording, but it all pretty much means the same thing. You know, what you might not have, and maybe some of you do, is quite a large geographical spread of academies. You're saying, James, why are you putting this up on the screen? Well, it's got a little bit of a bearing, really, on our approach. So you can see we are quite geographically spread across the country. And then if you just think about the context, really, that we work within that sort of a state sphere, and David's already touched on, he's already touched on a few of these already. Oh, taking it. Right? But we've got targets such as, the emissions reduction to reduce 78% of our emissions by 2035 compared with the 1990 levels. There's a brilliant website you can go to that tracks this. And if you're interested, you can come and ask me and I'll let you know. It's not secret, it's there, it's accessible. At the moment, the sector spend, well, this is an old calculation really that I found, about 630 million. That's a couple of years old now. So my gut feeling, the James value is probably about 950 as a sector that we spend on energy, and that's a lot. I don't know about you, but my electricity bill for my schools has gone up, it's probably doubled over the last 3 years. And that's something that, my trust are having to swallow, as I'm sure, you're having to do the same there as well. But we got 60% of our school buildings were built before 1976. And as David mentioned, we've got this sort of backlog maintenance issue of around, 11 and a bit billion, but that's sort of old money in terms of rates from a few years ago. We know the rates of goods, especially building equipment, has gone up since then. And then we've got that pressure of new school places as well that we've all got, depending on the local authority and depending on how you work with your local authority. So for us, this is a bit of a conundrum of a ball, isn't it, of all these different things. And I'm sure some of you have thought like that, with all these things bubbling around in your head, and we did as well. And for us, coming back to that geography, that sort of challenge, is how do we have that relationship between central control of our sort of head office function of our trust, and then what the academies do, because we don't want to micromanage them, because that means we'd have to have teams of people to do the micromanaging. We can't afford that because we're spending loads of money on energy. But then you want our site teams in the academies to be empowered to do the right thing, so they know how to do the maintenance. They've got the checklist, they know the suppliers that they can use that are already vetted and qualified and have got the right insurance to do the work. And then we as the responsible body, because we are a responsible body, it's things that we need to do there, and you can see the little list. So for us then, and we tried to make this really simple, especially for when I was talking to my trustees around how do we simplify this right down. So we came up with 3 areas, and it's our 3 areas, not saying it's right, and do go and have a look in GEMS, because you'll see that half of the wording that I've got here on these slides, you'll see I've taken bits of GEMS, the bits that I liked. And then we've got compliance, life cycling, and sort of hard and soft FM operational costs. So the compliance is building statutory compliance, making sure that our building is compliant, that we've got the right water hygiene, lift safety, and so forth, inspections and certificates in place. The life cycling is around that sort of long-term strategic maintenance and thinking of the building and making sure that we know how many science labs we need next year for the new principal that started at one of our academies that wants to change the curriculum a little bit. And then that sort of FM hard and soft operating costs in that bottom box. Now, I'd love to spend ages talking to you about all of those, but unfortunately, we've only got so much time. So we're going to look at a little bit of a deeper dive into the bit in the red box, which will be good. All right, so coming back to that national context. So this information on the next couple of slides is from the CDC high-level summary report, which is about a year old now, and hopefully the CDC team will be releasing the new one when the new data is finished. So as you can see there, what the slide shows is just the sort of the average condition need per block, and as the red square drawn around that shows you that a lot of my schools are in that sort of 1950s to 1970s, and put your hands up if some of your schools are in that same block, just so we know. Yeah, there's loads of us, isn't it? We've all got the same. That's why it's a big bar, isn't it? We know that. All right. So then this next slide, what this does is just shows you the different elements on an average across the CDC data. So this could be things like outside play spaces, toilets, windows, doors, roofs, and all sorts of things. What do we think the big ones are on the left? What do you reckon? The big one on the left. What do we think? Anyone? Sorry? Roofs. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's you're in the right sort of territory. Vince, tell us what the top 2 are.
I'll leave that one to you.
All right. There you go. Electrical and mechanical services. And I'm sure yours is in the same sort of category, isn't it? It's mechanical and electrical, really, are the big things.
Thanks, James. I'm head of estates within Ormiston, so my job is spending the money. James is looking after the money. I'm spending it. So we've got a good cut, back cut kind of relationship. So let's have a look at GEMS first of all. I think before you get into doing any kind of works, GEM talks about 4 different phases. So you've got the strategic approach, first of all, estates visions, and David talked about the vision, the strategy, the asset management plan, and then going into a plan and organize the resources phase, and understanding your buildings and your land, and managing your performance of the buildings. So within the next 5 minutes, we're just going to talk about specific aspects. So we'll just talk about asset management plans, how we do our budgets and finance, how do we divide the cake, which one gets priority. We've got 43 academies, we've got an SCA, we don't apply for SIF, but we've got money to spend, so we do need to prioritize the spend. So we'll have a look at that. How we gather information and the condition of our buildings and assess suitability and efficiency as well. And finally, review performance and the management of our buildings. So, first of all, our strategy is to make sure our schools are safe, well maintained, and are sustainable environments. So we have 3 different themes for that. We have a look at the condition first of all, and asset management plans is where we locate our conditions. This is the recipient of our the data we hold on condition. So we use specialist surveys. We use potentially roofers that actually go out and give us a free survey. So that's valuable information. We need to overlay CDC data as well because it's there, it's useful. So the key for us was to create an asset management plan, which was to merge all of those kind of series of data and make it useful to us. Then suitability and efficiency is also a key theme. We talked about making sure the money goes a long way. We're there to deliver education, so the buildings are just a facilitator of education. So the educationalists come to us, our principals come to us and say, we haven't got enough rooms to do this, we need more space to do this. Then we need to listen to that and we need to capture this. So the net capacity assessment as well is a useful piece of data, and we're capturing this within the asset management plan. And the last trend is management of reduction of utilities. So we know the cost of utilities is going up quite a lot, and we've got to make sure we've reduced the spend, but also I think doing it through our kind of centralized purchasing is a good thing. We can save quite a lot of money, and we've gone through a program of doing that. But also changing behaviors is also a good way to tackle reduction of spend on utilities. So let's have a quick look at asset management. So for us, asset management is capturing the CDC data. So you may recognize this little table there. If you've got a CDC piece of information, it's actually giving you quite a lot of data about each of the elements and some condition ratings, which you may or may not agree with, but still useful to implement into your asset management plan. So we're capturing this and we're converting it into a document that creates small projects with a rate, a cost per square meter, a time when the last roof was installed and when we're going to install the next roof, as an example. And then we start planning over the next 25 years what we've got, what sort of money we need to allocate against our academies, and how we're going to deliver a spending profile across a number of years. Then we overlay as well M&E information. So we've got separately to the CDC data on our condition survey, we've got a services company that manage our boilers, everything to do with M&E. And we're capturing all this asset, and we're doing the same with that. So we're overlaying the cost of spending for the M&E and all of the other elements that are useful to us. So we're converging all that data into an asset management plan, which has got overarching figures, and we're utilizing that as well to capture the facilities cost, hard FM, which is all your replacements of elements, and soft FM, which are your contracts, your catering cost. To keep an eye on that, and other initiatives. So academies may do some good works about lettings and saving money in different areas. So we converge our 43 asset management plans with all the 43 ideas from everyone to actually come up with documents that can be useful to spend the money. So how do we divide the cake then? Because we still got condition data, a lot of projects. And how do we get to prioritizing and giving the money to the right places? So we start with the 3 things again. We've got the conditions, we've got suitability and efficiency, and we've got the energy savings, which we're not leaving behind. So condition is the highest spend for us. So we've all got old buildings that we need to repair. We've got buildings that are in urgent need of replacement, and there is little money. We get money, but there's little money to spend. So we utilize a risk-based approach to do that. So we categorize all our risks, which are all D4, if you understand condition rating. It's bad condition and urgent as a 4. and we subdivide them into 3 categories. So urgent risk is going to fall now, this year, or high probability, we could probably live with that risk for a bit longer, and medium risk, it's going to be a bit longer. So, once we start allocating all the funds towards those high-profile costs that James was showing earlier, then we're starting to reduce the spend to just a number of high-condition need to afford the other themes in our program, to afford the replacement of light bulbs into energy-saving ones, even if they're not condition-related ones, and to address the classrooms to suit educational requirements. So our condition alone is outweighs the school condition allocations by almost double, and I'm sure we're all the same, aren't we? We're getting half the money we need, but by doing that risk assessment approach, we're focusing on the reds and then the ambers and the green, then we're reducing that bill to fit within the SCA, and we afford a bit more money then to have a look at the other budget spending. So we allocate about 25% on suitability and sufficiency on the schools. We use the net capacity data that we currently hold. The local authority have got net capacity data to give us as well, which is not always up to date because we've been an academy trust for quite some time. And the government is going through another program of doing the net capacity, as David was saying earlier. So, and that 25% as well goes towards projects to reduce energy like LED and PVs on the roof, which we cannot leave behind. So, lastly, our success factors is making sure we triangulate the data between condition, suitability, and green tech. So that for us, that's our key success factor. If we can do all of this, if we can carry all the balls at the same time, then we are on the winning formula. And that, we're not saying we've got the right formula. We started a few years ago with 20 academies, and we had a completely different kind of estate strategy. So we're just coming up with new ideas, and this is why every organization will be evolving and need to think about their estates in their own ways. And so triangulating the information is very key. We simplify the data so that we put all of those condition line items, which probably about, for us, it was 60,000 lines of data. If you had a condition survey for 43 academies, it's 60,000 lines of data. What do you do with it? So it's key that you turn the information to something that you can understand and you can report to the board and explain to everybody where the funding needs to go within the trust. And then and maintain our AMPs. So the AMPs is key. Get the data into the AMP, maintain the AMPs, and monitor the performance of your building. So we transformed, I'm not sure whether you can see that, but very old derelict kind of classroom, typical rooms into good ones, but I'm sure you're all doing the same. But it's for us, the key factor is triangulating all of that data into one piece of information. Okay, so I'll hand you over back to James for the TNT.
Right, the Trust Network. So this is a peer support group run by Academy Trust. I'm one of the members as well, or one of the coordinators for it, and there's a couple of other Academy Trusts as well that work together with me to coordinate the activities of TTN. So we've been around for a little while. I'm hesitant to ask you to put your hands up, because if not many people put your hands up, then I won't feel that happy and joyful anymore. But I'm just assuming that loads of you already know about the TTN, and you're probably already members already. But we've been around for a little while, as you can see with the graph here. Look at that, look how many members we've got. Isn't that fantastic? It is really good. So what do? Well, we have we have an annual national conference where we get together, and we had one successfully this year, just post-COVID, so we're really pleased with the turnout for that. We have lots of online events, regular sort of bi-monthly webinars where we'll have an event like Ask an Expert. So if our members sort of email us and say, oh, it'd be really good if we could ask some questions on asbestos, we'll try and find someone who's a market-leading consultant on asbestos, and then there will be an online session where people can join and then ask questions in sort of a structured way. That we have a monthly newsletter, that goes out to members. You know, we're quite well connected, or like to think we're quite well connected with other, you know, government bodies and other similar bodies to us. And, you know, we get around a lot as well. So we present at the Academy Show or Math Expo or Education Estates. And we're here today as well because I'm a TTM member. So really, there isn't much reason why you shouldn't join, I suppose, really, because it's free, it's easy. You get included in a mailing list, you get sent really useful information, and every now and then you get invited to an event that we usually have at lunchtime, so you can join with your sandwiches or whatever snack that you've got going at lunch and just sort of join in and ask questions. So there we go. So there's some contact details there, and I'm presuming the slides will probably be shared, won't they? I don't know if anyone can ask that. Maybe the slides will be shared. But myself and Fabrice will be around for the rest of the day, so if you want to buttonhole us and come and talk to us, because we did sort of whistle through there the slides on asset management plans. We're not saying what we do is right or the best thing, but it's what we do because we feel it works for our trust where we are on our journey of how we use data, and we feel that it works quite well for us. So we're willing to share, it's no secret, so hopefully that's been useful. All right.
Hi, I'm Julia Anwar from the Olympus Academy Trust. I wondered if you could share any top tips that you have or strategies that you've implemented to reduce energy usage in your schools. Because I want to borrow them.
Well, what I'd really like is a big switch by the front door, by the alarm panel of every one of my schools, so the site team can just switch it off at night. So we, like you, I don't know if any of you have done any analysis, but one of my top tips would be is to try and do some meter reading analysis on how much energy you use within inside your building. How many revolutions of the meter goes around between 10 o'clock at night and about 6 o'clock in the morning. So that's roughly the time when there are no more lettings and the building is just empty. It's locked normally, unless there's something special event going on. And just track that data and see. So for us, it was it was a lot. There was a good percentage of our gas and electricity was being used during that period. And we're working really hard now to narrow down what is left switched on or plugged in during that time. You think I'm going to bash new school buildings now? I'm not. But what we found is for some of those schools, we've got a few which are newer and let's say developed and built within the last 20 years. They do have a more complicated building management system, stroke heating system. And our site teams, as much as we love our site teams and they're really, really good, quite often it's out of their sort of scope of knowledge of what to do. And that's not their fault. It's just because they've never been trained on it or they've never been shown how to manage it. So they continually still always press the same buttons they have pressed all the time because what are they interested in? They're making sure that there's hot water so students and staff can wash their hands, that the building's warm, it's ventilated, and as long as they've got all those ticks in a box, that's okay because they're, no one's going to whinge at them because the school's working. But obviously it might not be the most efficient. So my top tips, look to see what you use between 10 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning. That sort of period outside of lettings. You'll be shocked, I suspect. And then work to try and reduce that down. And it's hard work to do it. So what we did was we picked a couple of schools to start with where the site team were on board and were happy to work with us. And it was experiments. We were turning stuff off. So, we were turning off the boiler or turning off different pumps and trying to find out, trying to narrow down the reasons why those bits of equipment were, whatever equipment in the school was using electricity. I'm not saying that's not the most scientific way of doing it. You can get sort of meter reading devices that you can clip onto different devices, or electrical boards within inside the school, so you can get sort of meters, data loggers that clip onto them, and you can do that. But they're quite expensive. They're quite expensive to run. So that's what we found. But the first thing to do is what I'd recommend is just getting hold of that data. And you don't need to have some sort of complicated energy dashboard to do that. Most energy providers, if you contact them, they will give you that data. It might be a bit clunky. They might only give it on a weekly basis or whenever, but over time you can build up a bit of a picture. Hiya.
Hi, my name's Claire Skinner. I'm a business manager at Kings Norton Girls' School. I'm standalone Academy of Trust. My question's really for David, sorry.
Okay.
about. Hi. I found the GEMS information really helpful in supporting my strategic vision for my site and my premises. But with another hat on, I'm also the chair of the Birmingham Association of School Business Managers, and when I speak to colleagues, there's still quite a lack of awareness of GEMS. You talked about engaging schools, and I just wondered if you were going to get out to local network groups and maybe look to support maybe some workshops around asset management plan building for business managers within those network groups. I think it would be a really great way to drive your message because your tools are really good. And I just think that's a massive opportunity for you.
Firstly, thank you very much, and it's a reflection of all the hard work that actually schools and others have invested in GEMS, and we have a kind of like attitude in our team that if it's not making a difference, if it's not working for schools, we're not doing it, and which helps us get, I think, tools that really matter. And if any suggestions, please do put them towards us. We're a small team and we're piggybacking on everything we can because we want to reach every single one of those 22,000 schools. And it's not just so that they're great schools that have good practice, but actually we want to make sure that every single person, because with an ageing estate, of course, comes risk. We want to make sure that every single person in a school in this country is safeguarded from any risk. And also we want schools to be one of the supporting pillars that help you guys do your jobs really effectively and build the next generation for our country. And everyone on my team is thinking of the end game and little Johnny or little Jane in Bolton and what can we do on our team to make a real meaningful difference in their lives and the lives of their teachers. We're doing it through estates management, but it doesn't mean that it's less important than the curriculum or anything like that. And so any ideas like that do help us. We're a small team, we're piggybacking on every single network we can get to, even the school unions, to reach every single school in the country. And I think if everyone knows the importance of managing their estates, if everyone knows the risks of not doing so, and if everyone knows what's available to them to help them do that, I think we would have done a great job this year. So thank you very much. Is that? There was just one more. Just last question, so I think you've probably got something else exciting to go to.
Sorry, I should have let you all go. I do apologise. It's more an observation, really, and not a criticism, but a reflection of SIF and the way that SIF works for multi-academy trusts. And we're a multi-academy trust, so I'm Matt McIver, I'm a COO for Sidari. We've got 12 academies, mainly primary, and we're still in a world of SIF because of the lag of us going to 3,500 pupils as it is now. So several SIF bids this year. But when we talk about proactivity in trying to plan for the future, there's at least 2 bids that we've submitted this year based on the feedback from 3 previous years. And to give you an example of one which was around boilers and heating, which now related this year fully to GEMS, and the response that we've received this year in terms of why it hasn't been successful is because we haven't closed the school enough through failed heating. And there's a similar one with safeguarding, whereby we haven't had enough evidence of police records and trespassers on site. So it's that disconnect, and I think I'm not expecting an answer to that right now because it's quite challenging, but I feel that the proactivity that we're expected with around SCA and our own revenue funding needs to be reflected in the judgments around SIF as well.
And thank you for that question. It's one of those issues that we're quite conscious of, and we work quite closely with all our funding colleagues. And one of the challenges, as colleagues from Ormiston pointed out, and we had it in our slide, is just the gaps in terms of the condition need and the funding, and sometimes in order to make that decision, there's certain things that we look at, but however, we're always looking at ways of improving that. So again, any feedback, do send it in to us, because we will talk with the SIF team, and we work quite closely with them. And again, what we're trying to do with the resources and that we have it to hand, try and do the best job we can to support you, every single person in in the school sector, and sometimes that may involve tough decisions that we don't like making, but if we can make those decisions better and more equitably, you know, that really helps us as well. So again, please do let us have more details on that, and we'll speak with colleagues.